a big matchup on deck for both sides of the board, but I do think it would be kind of max chaos for Reject to take this one home, because now it's like, where the heck does Reject fall in the greater picture of Asia? But we are ready to go here. Burn into Trala on deck, and Gambit already off the table.
But Elsa Bloodstone very firmly on the table and being slid over in Xy's direction. And when I talk about how this guy was a hit scan prodigy when he first hit the hero shooter scene, that has not changed, and that is a lethal weapon if ever there was one that you don't want in the hands of Xy, especially not unmirrored. So Reject's gonna have to take the Elsa Protect as well, which means you're gonna see the Mantis bands coming out from both sides, and this looks pretty bog standard across the board. There is some differentiation though. One side with the Vanpool ban and the other side with a Deadpool ban.
Yeah, I mean, it is all high value targets here in this draft phase. One-sided Vanpool gonna go over to the side of Reject. Piggy already hovering on that Deadpool, so they do get away with that one. It is gonna be a big duel between Monster Hunters here across the board as this match plays out here, so look out for those. But yeah, it does seem for the most part kind of bog standard stuff here. Jeff ban comes through though from Z10, so we're gonna take away some crazy Jeff stuff you can do, especially on like Warrior Falls. I know is a great point for Jeff.
Something interesting I want to highlight here as well. Brownie is not currently in for Reject. They have subbed in Finale, and I think this kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. Finale is another one of those players that I am familiar with. Usually a duelist player, and will be picking up the hit scan as well. Looks like he's going to be the one stepping up to the plate to try and best Xy in this exchange. We'll see if he's got what it takes, as Yaki is hovering the Ultron, and we talked a lot about how, you know, if you have the Mantis band, the Ultron does work as a good stand-in, because you kind of get those damage boosts with the drones nowadays, plus you get the benefit of the passive healing over time, so it's a great way to pocket your Elsa and make sure she is doing maximum damage as if she needed it.
Yeah, and not to mention, Ultron and White Fox do work pretty well together, too. I've seen some nasty setups in games I've played myself recently, so kind of looking forward to see how that plays out here on the Ignite stage. But yeah, draft phase in the books here. Plenty of jabs from both teams to start things off. Reject does look like they are going to stick with that Ultron to start things off here. Triple support potentially coming through for them. Zero tenacity. I do see a couple interesting things, not to spoil it. I won't ruin the fun for you too much here, but my main is arriving on the scene here. Potentially some Rocket Raccoon, or at least getting some armor packs there in the spawn room is usually how it goes.
It's probably just going to be some armor packs. I don't think Baser is going to be sticking on the rocket, but I don't know that I would have predicted the strat pool coming out. I guess if you can't, like we talked about it, sometimes you can't play the Van pool, strat pool is the next best thing, and Baser, I think, you know, known for their Gambit, will be just fine on that strat pool.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind, gonna play right on through, losing the Gambit here, but we are ready to go, taking the fight straight to each other there. Piggy on the front line on the Vanpool. Reject does get away with the one-sided Vanpool, so definitely gonna be looking to lean on that one as this map plays out, but it is Warrior Falls right out the gate here, so maybe gonna see a little bit of Jeff action somewhere down the line from Z10 if they want to opt for it, but right now don't look like they need it too bad here, as they are dead even with Reject as the two teams butt heads here. Gargoyle taken down, though. That's Jerry overhead on the Ultron Encephalo Ray, melting the Sorcerer Supreme. But it is going to be Reject with the first take very quickly. Battling back, though. Xy on the Elsa Bloodstone. Going to get Z10 right back in the fight here. And Marvel as well on the Captain America. Name a member of Z10. They've already shown up in your KO feed.
And Marvel showing up as the poster child for Marvel, and you work so hard for that 5% there, Reject. I hope you enjoy that, because if Zero Tenacity has their way, that is all you are going to get. Baser, I also like the Deadpool, the Genji skin, you know, sticking it to the other partner team, saying, oh, we have a preference in this house, and my friends, it is not you.
By the bundle, says Baser here, starting off. Zero Tenacity taking a very early lead. Jerry already got a Rage of Ultron ready to go. Yaki's got one online as well here. So we're going to be seeing dueling robots against each other here as Z10 off to the races here on the high ground, battling it out with Reject. Full force here as they are full sending it. Yaki's got Rage of Ultron going down as well, raining down some damage here, while Z10 going back to the point here just to try and shore up some defense as they are hitting that 50% mark here. And now now from Exy. The Galartrox coming out, Apex Predator, and a very nasty place to drop Apex Predator because you can send that Galartrox right over the edge, and most of your opponents with it here. Reject gonna try to capitalize a little bit here. They do throw down the boundary. Gargoyle's got the Eye of Agamotto, does come through, and Reject will find some KOs here, but Base are gonna try to fight back on the strat pool. Does find Finale, so one KO coming through for them just to try and even things out, but Reject gonna go ahead and empty the bank account here. Last couple ults gonna get used up, and that will get them a retake here, potentially, if they can finish off the last member. That's Soko going back to spawn, and that is a retake there for Reject.
I mean, they do drain the bank account, like you said, but Zero Tenacity were trying to go ban for ban there, so both teams completely emptying the ult bank, and I guess gonna have to take this next fight on credit card if they've got one. Jerry and Yaki both in too close to that range of Ultron, but outside of that, nothing coming online anytime soon. But thankfully, Reject can get themselves on the board, get control over this choke point, and at least for the time being, for this neutral phase, while everybody is poking, trying to build up to something, they can start to amass some of that percentage. And luckily, they were able to stop the clock at 78% for Zero Tenacity, so there is still an opportunity for a retake, even if this first defense falters.
Yeah, can definitely break through here, even without the alt game advantage here. Fighting in the tunnels above Warrior Falls, though, and it's going to be one more KO from Piggy, and the selfie, the level up, ready to go. Deadpool online for Reject here, and putting in some work. Rages of Ultron back online, and both of them going to fire here. But Z10 going to pick up one KO. That's XC on the Elsa yet again, finding one more notch in the Monster Piercer here, as Z10 trying to battle back into position to contend here. They will go to the ground there. Baser and XC picking up more KOs, and they will pick back up the point. Reject cannot take the lead just yet.
Late Elim there from XC onto Lastro, and an even later one onto Finale. Gonna be a strange TP potentially coming out from Gargoyle. He makes the swap, 88% and counting. There is time, and good place to set that one up, making sure no one denies it, using the Guardian Shield as well. Good stuff coming out. Gargoyle now from the high ground does have access to this Eye of Agamotto, but I don't see any good targets anytime soon, and XC is lurking with that Apex Predator. Gonna go ahead and top it, catching on to one, but I don't think the Elim is gonna come through. Reject, gonna pop the invisible boundary. They want to hold strong. This is their last chance for Warrior Falls.
That Galartrox is not coming through so huge here, but Zero Tenacity gonna come up big. Eye of Agamotto from Gargoyle is good, does find most of C10, but they cannot convert on it. They don't have the bodies to do it here, and the bodies will fall here. Most of Reject taken offline. Overtime ticks away, but not quite yet here. One last stand from Reject, and Zero Tenacity will take Warrior Falls.
Zero Tenacity did not want to give that one up at all, though. They popped 4 ults in that fight. You know, we only saw, I think, 2 of them actually happen. We saw the Apex Predator and we saw an Eye of Agamotto, but the other 2 went unspoken. There was the Freedom Charge that ended up coming out from Marvel, and I'm not quite sure if it was, no, it was the Invisible Boundary from Windy that came out as well. So Zero Tenacity drain the coffers again just to be able to hold on there, and that does give Reject a little bit of breathing room coming into to Stellar Spaceport. They're gonna have the Kumiho Unleashed, and they're gonna have the Apex Predator before Zero Tenacity have anything they could potentially use to parry that one, save for Baser's ultimate, because both sides are gonna have Deadpool ultimates lickety split, especially after the upgrades from the previous map.
Yeah, not to mention Rage of Ultron won't be too far behind there either, as that one's a quick charge, but Shunghun gonna go over to the Luna Snow for now. Jerry gonna stay with the Ultron, but yes, Shunghun over onto the Luna Snow. Back open once again though, ready for a fight here. Stellar Spaceport on deck now. Soko looking for the Strange Portal to get things going early, right on the capture point here, as Zero Tenacity gonna keep the pressure on here. Metal back to the metal, as they're gonna take the fight right to Reject here. The Reject have the ult econ advantage. Z10 gonna go out aggressive to start things off here. Gonna try to lock down this mission area before it can even come online. Reject holding the ults for now, have to imagine, looking for a better opening, not wanting to just let those things fly. But Baser's got the Deadpool ult ready to go here. Lastro does go Kumiho Unleashed, but Zero Tenacity dropped down some damage and sent her right back to White Fox form here. The rest of Reject's ults coming out now. They will find Marvel. Finale will finish them off to start off this second point, and now Reject gonna very quickly look for an early capture here. Jerry trying to even out the odds here. Rage of Ultron from both sides of the board. Yaki's got one up as well here, but Reject are just trying to get this last little bit of space to secure this point. Piggy will get right up off the Apex Predator and finish finish off Baser. One more KO for the Vanpool on the side of Reject here. Finale and Wendy gonna trade for both sides, but Reject, I feel like, have more bodies here on the point, but they just can't find the confirmation here. Gargoyle Feast of the Abyss is feasting on the Invis. Piggy picking up 2 more KOs on the Deadpool here, but Zero Tenacity will just not give up. Marvel on the point on the cap, but he goes down, and finally the point goes to Reject.
And there's a nice little selfie. Put that one in the history books to commemorate the Battle of the Stellar Spaceport, the one that seemingly never ended. Even when Reject win it, though, it feels like they lose because they use all of their ultimates, and it takes so long for it to end up coming their way. Zero Tenacity going to be coming in with both Vanguard ultimates in this next fight, so even though you're going to be building up for the Apex Predator, if it's not massive, it's going to be another long, drawn-out fight here, one that Zero Tenacity seem primed to take.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like those have come through so big here. Finale lets one fly here. Apex Predator yet again, but Jerry picking up one off the Encephalo Ray, sending Piggy all the way back to spawn here as Zero Tenacity are gonna very quickly look to take control of the situation here. They're already making progress on that capture point here, but of course Gargoyle not gonna give it up that easy on the Venom here. Plenty of health and plenty of symbiotic resilience still left for them, but not enough to stop the Maelstrom of Madness there from Soko. Still holding the Eye of Agamotto as well here as Reject again purge the bank account here. The ults coming down from Reject, but the KO's just not coming through for them, and they find themselves in this position again where Zero Tenacity are not giving up. They're not going down, but they are running out of ultimates. Eye of Agamotto for Soko is good onto the Luna, but they don't convert either here, and it is yet again another back and forth fight. Only difference here, Reject is in control of the point and over 70% of the way captured here, so Z10 gotta find a way to break through here before too long.
Yeah, but Sunghoon was able to find a late KO there and is coming up on the Fate of Both Worlds, and that coupled with that Feast of the Abyss, you can damage boost that Feast of the Abyss and get an insta KO off of that one, and that's something that Zero Tenacity have to be privy to, and even without that, it's gonna get us into 99% territory, so Reject, despite coming in at a disadvantage in that fight, have essentially ran the gauntlet all the way up, got themselves into one fight territory, and they just need to close it out. And Finale, with one shot between the eyes of Xe, looks to do just that, but Soko not gonna be outgunned, puts Finale to justice, and this one is going to be another bloody one.
Yeah, very quickly approaching this third point here as Reject trying to close things out. Feast of the Abyss from Gargoyle, but Marvel on the move on that Freedom Charge. Yet again here, they've got the Rage of Ultron, and Jerry's gonna let it rip here. Reject gonna have a couple ultimates here online in the middle of this fight, but Zero Tenacity just a hair away from the retake, and they will have it here. Point 2 marches on as Z10 take control of it for the first time so far, but they will slow it down now. Z10 in control of the point, and Reject gonna have to dust themselves off here. They got plenty of time to do so.
Even still, Reject don't fully disengage. Gargoyle goes in, takes a bit of damage. Symbiotic Resilience forced out as well, and Zero Tenacity maybe trying to force a little bit more than that. If nothing else, they're able to take this choke point and force Reject back, and the longer they can do that, the more chance they have of matching that 99%. I like that the ult bank for both sides is still roughly even. You know, both sides have Apex Predator. Baser's got the Deadpool ultimate, whatever they decide to choose. I think it's been the Ponage Pound more often than not. Lastro with that Kumiho Unleashed. There's tools for Reject to get back into this, and just as many tools for Zero Tenacity to keep them from getting back into it.
Yeah, it just feels like it has been a back and forth absolute tug of war here. Zero Tenacity trying to break through, though. Xe and Finale gonna trade here, but it's a double for Finale's Elsa against Z10. Soko and Baser both sit back to spawn here. Xe does throw down the Apex Predator yet again. Jerry's got the Rage of Ultron overhead. Complete satellite for Zero Tenacity, but of course Yaki's got eyes in the skies as well for Reject. Rage ready to go for them now as well. Soko throwing down the Strange Portal, trying to keep them in the fight as Reject have made the retake here and are in overtime yet again. Wendy's got an invisible boundary on the board, but Reject have Fate of Both Worlds from Sunghoon. Marvel will find Yaki on the Ultron here, trading back and forth yet again. Reject quickly catching up to Zero Tenacity. Felt like point number 1. Z10's all the way, but now Reject here threatening to get him to point number 3. Finale putting the pressure on, trying to create the space to tick out these last couple seconds of overtime here, but Zero Tenacity again not giving up here. Marvel on the point, but they are running out of bodies to keep throwing into the machine here. Marvel goes down, the second ticks away, and Reject will take us to point number 3.
They look to be back in fighting form, recovering from that triple AD matchup and ready to go 6 rounds with Zero Tenacity. And we're going at least 3 here on Burn and T'Challa, and I gotta give my flowers to Gargoyle on that point. So much of those fight wins and so much of that staggeredness that we experienced throughout that entire point was because Gargoyle kept going in, creating space and forcing Zero Tenacity back into a nice little cubby there, and they couldn't ever deal with him definitively, and so every time they poked their head out, he was there continuously putting in the pressure, setting up the shots, letting Finale just have a shooting gallery, and one that Zero Tenacity just didn't really have a good way out of, and they had to win the fight decisively in order to be able to do so, and only did on one occasion, and the rest was just stagger city and reject stagger all the way to 99%, but look at the ult bank. We're going back to even footing here, going on to Imperial Institute of Science, and I don't really know, like, which way is this one going to go? Jerry's gonna have the Rage of Ultron before long, and that might give Zero Tenacity the edge, but even still, I don't know that I'm confident enough to say for sure.
I've been very surprised that the Apex Predators have been very hit and miss here. Not a lot of value out of the Elsa ults from Finale and Xe. Of course, they've gotten plenty of KOs themselves here, even without the ult. But both teams pretty much playing heads up for those Elsa ultimates here. Xe gonna have the first one of this point here. And of course, like you said, the Rage of Ultron's gonna come online very, very soon here. But it is knockdown, drag out here all the way to point number 3 on map 1 between these two teams. And now it is a question of who's gonna get the first cap here on the last bout between the two of them. Z10 very quickly taking the lead in ults and taking the lead in bodies. Jerry hits 1 KO off the Encephalo Ray, goes straight into the Rage of Ultron, carves through Gargoyle, and looking to put down some more damage onto Reject here. No KOs come through at the end of that, but not a bad start for Z10. There's the Apex Predator, does pick up 1, and Finale will finish off Windy here, but taken right down by a baser here. So immediately just traded right back Zero Tenacity's way.
And it's just breaking down so fast here. Marvel's gonna take down Sunghoon, which is a good start there, but has to go grab the health pack in order to take this Sky Duel here with Jerry. And the Gargoyle now popping this piece of the Abyss, looking to get a good crunch there and taking down Xe, swallows him whole, and Marvel getting cut down in the skies by Yaki. And again, it's not definitive. Reject doing a good job of weathering the storm here. Yaki now popping this Rage of Ultron, and that should be enough to repel Zero Tenacity, at least for the time being, get themselves first cap yet again. They have to burn the Strange TP in order to do it as well, and now Finale gonna make the swap back over onto the Elsa. Not a bad look there for Reject, but it does mean that, you know, they won't have that Strange TP to go for a recontest here. If they lose the point, they're gonna have to just give it up.
Yeah, maybe banking on this point being a long fight as well, as the last two have ended up being. Marvel already Freedom Charge activated to get Z10 back in the fight here. Fate of Both Worlds coming down from Sunghoon. Piggy will pick up 1 KO underneath that, forcing out all the ults that Zero Tenacity have. The Eye of Agamotto comes through, but no KOs coming out of that one, and the Invisible Boundary going to be down before too long here. So Z10 back to neutral, but Baser's got Deadpool ult and a Rage of Ultron in the back pocket for Z10 here. Xe and Finale again trading on the Elsa, 1 KO apiece. Gargoyle goes down, and Marvel back to spawn here. But I noticed Gargoyle, same kind of thing. Once Reject grabbed this point, already pushing out, trying to put the pressure on and keep Z10 away from the point here. No chance to contest for them. But right now, right in Reject's face, trying to get this capture point away from them as Reject just past 50%.
And Gargoyle is making them work for every inch, though, but it will be enough to find the flip. 55% is going to have to be good enough, at least for now, for Reject. Zero Tenacity want to press the advantage and build up that percentage with a little bit more stagger KOs. They're going to find 2. Wendy taking down Piggy to clean that one up there. And Finale is getting caught out there. Zero Tenacity going in super deep. And this is a little bit rough now for Reject. Remember I said they don't have the Strange TP. Even if they did, the line of scrimmage is too close to their spawn in order for them to be able to use it. Sunghoon on a sliver of HP. Good freeze there onto Soko. Maybe a little bit of BM. Not going to be too consequential, but it is a moral victory for the backline of Reject. They're going to need a lot more than that in order to get themselves back on the cart, though.
Yeah, and Z10 already picking right back up. Soko 1 KO on the Doctor Strange. Finale back to spawn. Reject gonna throw down the ults. Kumiho unleash. An overhead Rage of Ultron yet again for Reject here, trying to keep the team alive and get some damage rolling here so they can dig their way out of this corner that Z10 has suddenly put them in. It feels like they found an inch and took a mile with it here. Marvel again, Freedom Charge ready to go here, granting that team that extra ult charge, and it comes up big here. Marvel with a double KO on the cap here, and 3 ults ults still ready to go for Z10 as they will take the capture progress lead, make it 3 there for Mr. Hendricks there, the super soldier football player now apparently.
66% for Zero Tenacity, and they have now passed Reject and are getting into that one fight territory. And Reject, you know, they're coming back on some of these ultimates that you would love to see in a stagger sort of situation when they're in control of the point, but they don't have it. And Jerry gonna pop that Rage of Ultron, force them back into this cubby here, and still Marvel holding up the shield, being the bouncer, not letting them into the door. They've managed to tear the wall down entirely, which should create at least a little bit of breathing room, but 87%, there's no breathing room left on the clock. Zero Tenacity are going to prevent Reject from trying to get a touch if they can. Someone's gonna have to be able to get in there, and I think Gargoyle might have to be the one. 95%, running out of time. We gotta get the swing, we gotta get the touch. Please, not another C9. All right, I can breathe.
Yeah, no C9 here. They are going to fight it out all the way to the very end here. Sunhoon does throw down the Fate of Both Worlds, but not enough to save Whitebox or Elsa. 2 members of Reject already shut down here in overtime. Baser's got the ult. Wendy's got the invisible boundary, and they might have the KOs here to do it. Marvel will find one. Apex Predator comes down from Exy as well, and Soko and Jerry in the KO feed yet again here as Reject slowly going offline, and Z10 on point number 3 will take Burnin' T'Challa.
I think we got 2 key takeaways, at least from this first map here. One, Reject, like I said earlier, they're back in fighting form. This is not the same Reject that lost 2 maps to AAAD earlier on in the day. But the other thing is that Zero Tenacity are mean. When they have an advantage, they will press it, and they will suck the life out of you if you let them get away with it. So much of that was won off the back of Marvel, like we said here, and the rest of the team as well, just forcing Reject so far back that they have to try and play through them in order to even get the touch onto the point, and by the time they do, it's too little too late. They're already bleeding out resources. But again, I gotta go back to Gargoyle back on Stellar Spaceport. Like, man, that was perfect Venom play that came out from Reject on that point. It was enough to get them the sub-map win there, but not enough to carry them through once things open up a little bit more on Imperial Institute of Science. That was all Zero Tenacity once they found that first flip.
Yeah, you cannot give this Zero Tenacity team anything because they will take it and run with it. And run with it they did here on Burnin' T'Challa all the way to point number 3. Every inch of this map had to get played out, but it is Zero Tenacity at the end of the day, taking the first win and already on a match point here. But it was not without breaking a sweat here, as like you said, Reject back in full form here. Piggy and Gargoyle, the Vanguard line, doing work here for Reject, picking up KOs left and right. Like you said, Gargoyle putting the pressure on like a powder keg here against Z10 at every opportunity they had, but just not enough to pull out the map win, and Zero Tenacity advance to the match point. So I would agree with you. I definitely feel like Reject have recovered from that triple AD match, but you know, they just need a little bit more to push them over the hill and start taking maps.
And sometimes that can feel a little bit rough, you know, like you've done so much work, you're trying to get back to the top where you feel like you should be, and you're just a couple inches short, and Zero Tenacity are taking those inches, and like you said, they are making miles out of them, but it feels like everybody on both sides is firing on all cylinders. You're seeing so many strategy results come up real quick, a lot of peel, a lot of good healing. There's one moment there where you know, the banhammer gets put onto Jerry in the middle of that Rage of Ultron, but the healing comes through, so even though all those extra beams coming out are misses, still able to heal up and live throughout all of it. Incredible stuff, picture perfect, and I can't wait to see more of it, but unfortunately I'm going to have to, as we're going to go to a quick break before map number 2, but don't go anywhere, this one is just heating up.
Well, the storm rages on here in the Asia Pacific preseason. Zero Tenacity and Reject going blow for blow on Burn and T'Challa. Lots of long back and forth fights, but it is Zero Tenacity taking it after 3 points of domination action. CB, a much stronger looking Reject than we saw earlier tonight.
But unfortunately not strong enough to snag themselves the map win on Domination. We talked again about how dominant they were against AAAD on Domination. They were anything but on Reject on this one here against Zero Tenacity. You know, they really had to work for it. They really had to fight for it. They did a fantastic job with the Venom play on Stellar Spaceport, but this is where my heart kind of sinks a little bit, because we are returning to the scene of potentially the greatest crime. We are going back to Symbiotic Surface. It's it's Reject's map pick, and they're also going to get to choose which side they want to play. But what I want to know is A, why, and B, what is going to be different between this and the AAAD matchup? Because I don't really like what I saw the last time around. I'm not sure if it was the game plan or just the execution on it, but something didn't click, and against a team like Zero Tenacity, it has to, or we are in for a short night.
Yeah, I mean, first problem here is Symbiotic Surface. I'm gonna have to get my parka back out. I'm in the splash zone for all of the Venom slime, of course. But yeah, that is kind of my question too, looking at this map. I was very shocked when I saw this come up, because
you did a spit take. You did it. You were having, I'm going to break the fourth wall here and be like, between the break, you were taking a sip of your water, and I was like, look at the map, and you would like.
Yeah, it was definitely rough shouts for Reject on Symbiotic Surface. They kind of felt like it was really they never kind of got off on the right foot. They were kind of circled around the capture point and then just didn't really go beyond just kind of standing and trading blows. So, you know, I have to imagine if they're going back here, there's something they have cooking that they just couldn't get off the stove in time for the first time around.
I mean, there was potentially some time for like a scrim block in between those two matches here. We've been here for a good few hours, and most scrim blocks only last 2 hours, so they could have played 2 hours with the Symbiotic Surface and really ironed out how to play this map and execute on their game plan. It was this weird kind of split push where they had Gargoyle on the Venom, which he's phenomenal at. He's fantastic at that hero. But then you had, you know, an Emma Frost or a Magneto over on the other side, helmed by Piggy, and then it's like they're trying to set up a crossfire for a hit scan, you know, get somebody in position to just hit the shots on the Phoenix, but those shots just never came. They never got what they were looking for here, and every single time they tried to line something up, you know, you had Yaki on the Psylocke trying to follow up, but it was too disjointed. I think, you know, while I didn't love that plan the first time I saw that, if that's what they're trying to go for here again, and they have cleaned up the execution on it, it does hold some merit, but is it going to be enough to beat someone like Zero Tenacity? Because again, you cannot have a performance even in the same hemisphere as what you showed on this map against AAAD if you want to beat a team like Z10.
Yeah, I mean, really kind of the plot thread for Reject throughout this whole night has been restoring the faith. You know, they dropped a match yesterday to Pirates, which kind of understandable, you know, one of the top teams in Asia for sure. Then the AAAD match happened, and there's a lot of questions around this team, and now it's kind of like, okay, they're going to go for the run back here on Symbiotic Surface, show us what they couldn't show us before, because I saw the setup, right? I was watching them set this up, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. You know, this could be pretty nasty, and they just didn't deliver on it. They couldn't find the payload to get what they were trying to get out of it. So I want to see them deliver on what they were trying to set up, because there's definitely some potential there. Like you were saying, you know, there is a play that could be pretty nasty and give them a lot of control over that early point and get them some time bank buildup, but they have to deliver on it. They gotta follow through.
I think there's more than just potential. In the immortal words of Tool, I know the pieces fit because I watched them fall away. All right, they've got to fix this this split play, this schism between them, if I could reference the very same song. Man. Ooh, yeah, chills. I love that one. We're going to be getting into the map here, and we'll see if that's what they try to go for and try and execute that same plan, or if maybe this is still just, you know, a curveball, because not a lot of people are scrimming this map. Not a lot of people are playing this map. Most are avoiding it like the plague, you know, like you and I do. We roll up our windows, we put on our umbrellas. We don't want to get slimed like it's Nickelodeon. No, we want nothing to do with this map. And maybe with other teams not wanting to do with this map, Reject have a home field advantage. They have a set strategy that is not the one that we saw earlier. Maybe they have more tricks in their bag of tricks. We'll have to see, but the pick and ban base is going to paint the picture and potentially paint the end of Reject on this night if they don't come correct.
Yeah, I mean, that is the question here, is how deep does the bag of tricks go for Reject here? They are going back to Symbiotic Surface. Their counter pick from the earlier match with Triple AD. Gonna try to get some redemption here against Zero Tenacity. Of course, you know, this is a little bit of a different situation here. Reject don't have the early lead here. It is match point for Zero Tenacity, so no room for error here. Definitely seems like a risk, but we will have to see. I have faith here that Reject will pull something out of their hat to show us as we head back into the splash zone one more time for Symbiotic Surface. Once again, Gambit bans straight away. I don't know what else I can say about it.
That should be the protect coming out here from Reject. They're going to protect the Elsa, which is at least a little bit of an iteration on last time. I don't remember if we saw the Elsa coming out. And another iteration, again, we have Finale coming in rather than Brownie for Reject. And, you know, I'm not going to... I don't want to disparage Brownie because Brownie is a phenomenal hit scan player, but, you know, Reject looked pretty good in that last match, even in a losing effort, with Finale at the helm on that Elsa. So I've got confidence, I've got faith, and I've got no Mantis, so if I want a damage boost, I'm gonna have to get it from an Ultron.
Yeah, we may see him pop back up yet again here. Already saw him on map number 1, so wouldn't be too shocked here. Invis off the board for Z10, so no invisible boundary up for grabs on Symbiotic Surface here. DD ban from Zero Tenacity, gonna take that away from Yaki. Very understandable. Again, they had plenty of time to watch the tape. Even when Reject were losing against Triple AD, Yaki coming through on the Daredevil here. They will get the Vanpool online for themselves and hand it back over to Reject for another ban here. Doesn't seem like too big of a difference in this draft phase, but Reject potentially gonna ban out the Ultron against Z10. They are definitely thinking it over, and yes, they will lock it in there.
Oh, so that Elsa is going to be alone and afraid. All of that damage is going to have to be raw. No augments, no performance-enhancing strategist utilities. Nothing but the buckshot gonna have to come out from Xe, but I know he's good for it, but I want to circle back to something that you were just saying a minute ago about that that Daredevil, because I'm wondering if that is just like a set play, or not a set play, but like a specific set target ban against Reject and what they're trying to accomplish, because the same thing happened in the last series that we saw on this map here, and that forced Yaki over onto the Psylocke, and he's still got the question mark on his head right there on the portrait, but if he pulls out that Psylocke, we will know for sure that that is what they're going for. But right now, on the attacking side, Reject, he's hovering that Ultron, as someone is going to have to make use of this one-sided Ultron that they have gathered.
Yeah, definitely rethinking the strategy a little bit here. Like you said, kind of making some changes to the comp that they ran the first time around earlier tonight on Symbiotic Surface. But yes, we are back here. Reject did fall to Triple AD here last time, but there was a strategy they were trying to set up that they just did not deliver on. So giving them a second chance here to show their stuff against Zero Tenacity. Of course, for Z10, the path ahead pretty straightforward here. Win this map and go home undefeated after week number 1. That's the goal for them. Reject trying to get that faith back and restore, you know, prove that they still belong at the top of the leaderboards here in the Asia region. But time will tell here. Reject is going to start off on attack, so yet again they are in the hot seat here to prove that this strategy they got set up will work, because they counterpicked us here yet again. So I have to assume they are going to try to follow through here.
What a way to, or what a poetic way to get that momentum back than by going to the scene of your greatest folly and correcting that mistake. We'll see if that is the story that we get to tell today. Only time will tell, but Reject coming out the gate with Lastro on that white box, mirrored there by Visor on the other side. Catching Marvel out a little bit with some damage there from Finale. And this is already looking pretty good from Reject. Even though they are just sort of walking up the choke here, it's still better and still a lot more cohesive than what we saw before. And now Gargoyle has access to his dive target. And now it is Zero Tenacity been finding himself split. But Xe is going to give Finale a splitting headache with that Psionic Crossbow.
Yeah, just stuck up against the wall. No possible chance for strategists to get to him there, and just shot down in clinical fashion by Xe here to start things off. 60 seconds away, and yes, Reject definitely not looking as cold a feat as they had the first time around on Symbiotic Surface, but they are not quite to that capture point yet. Deadpool ults online for both sides of the board here to start things off. Reject on the move, but Zero Tenacity not going to wait around for them. They are going to take the fight right to him here. Both sides, Deadpool Vanpool ults. Van Hammer's coming through for both sides of the board here to kick things off. But again, they are looking for first blows to be traded here. Reject does have some capture progress, so they are definitely moving faster than they were last time. One tick away as Yaki goes overhead for Rage of Ultron, while down on the ground, Z10 got a couple ults ready to go. Apex Predator, but Jerry is holding onto it until the last second. Will find Finale though, does try to sneak up on him, but cannot be snuck up on. Apex Predator does come down, but he is taken down very quickly there by Gargoyle on the side of Reject. So definitely more back and forth here, but Reject already a couple ticks in the book here. No, make that one tick so far as they tick down to about half of their time left.
I will say, small silver lining, 66% is greater than 65, so they have managed to get a little bit more than what they did last time around, but still not enough to secure that second tick like you said. But 2 minutes of time bank, they could still get it done, but Gargoyle forced to pop the symbiotic resilience early on. Visor putting out so much pressure there. Gargoyle looking for the Feast of the Abyss, but I don't think he's going to be feasting on all that much. Sunghoon with that Fateable World, trying to keep Reject in the fight here as they keep this momentum going. Xe though, dance the butterfly on top of Sunghoon, is going to take him down. Lastro forced out of that Kumio form, and the Lartron's now coming out. It's so back and forth right now, but it looks like Reject are going to be dispelled here as Zero Tenacity restaking their claim off the back of some heroics from Xe, and Jerry, not to be outdone with some shots there onto his counterpart in Finale. Reject not going to be getting that 67%, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, solid double KO for Xe coming in here. It does feel like Reject definitely putting up more of a fight here, but they are again in this same position. One tick and 60 seconds on the clock to try and turn this thing around. And of course, Zero Tenacity pushing out just a little bit here, but Reject gonna have to walk all the way back up the middle lane here. And Xe, of course, in the side room is not gonna make that an easy task. They do have Rage of Ultron for Miyaki ready to go. That's the only ult on the board here right now. But Reject, again, a bit slow to start here, and Jerry, Gargoyle there, a little bit caught out, and Soko gonna finish him off on the Deadpool, open up that can of worms here, and Z10 yet again have the body advantage with just 30 seconds left to go.
Oh, the Apex Predator from Jerry, taking down Finale. 30 seconds left, just like you said, but it's going to be a stagger push, if that at all. Lastro was going to die late there. Xe finds the Elim, and you can see Zero Tenacity, they smell blood in the water, and like sharks, they swarm, they encircle, and Reject. They're not going to be able to get a strange TP off at this rate. They have to get Zero Tenacity off of their back before they can even dream of it. Still have that Rage of Ultron, still have Gargoyle looking to potentially get the swing in on there, but Zero Tenacity haven't been repelled far enough back in order for anybody to get the touch there. Gargoyle is going for it, but is it going to be enough? Is Zero Tenacity looks to hold the door?
Yeah, they are holding that door very firm here. Overtime already ticking down there. Reject, mad dash to the point here. They will buy themselves some overtime, cashing in every ult they've got. But Marvel on the Venom picking up one KO here to start things off. Make that two there. Xe finds one. Finale gonna try to even things out here, but Soko gonna get in the mix here as well, taking down another body from Reject here. Yaki hanging on by a thread. Gargoyle looking low too. Feast of the Abyss does come through. Zero Tenacity not here in full force, but enough to stop Reject. They make 1% more capture progress than the first time around.
And you can't just be 1% better than your biggest folly. You've got to be so much better. We needed to see not just that second tick. Realistically, for a team like Zero Tenacity, Reject needed to get the full cap onto point A and then get all the way to the end and force extra innings if Zero Tenacity even get that far. But now it's going to have to be a full hold or a 2-0. And I mean, this has got to feel really bad for Reject. I still don't know what the thought process is here, because they're kind of just playing this sort of like front to back with a little bit of dive mixed in, and it's still so very split and not capitalizing on their win conditions. And I just don't know. I don't know what the thought process is going to this map. I certainly don't know why we're going to this map twice, but Reject, I mean, they got to make it work. They've got no other option. They got to go for the full holds.
Yeah, I had really high hopes here right off the bat. You know, Reject definitely on the move, up on the capture point a lot sooner than the first time around here on Symbiotic Surface. But again, 66% there, just a couple of ticks is all Zero Tenacity are gonna have to do to close this out and complete an undefeated first week here of the preseason. A very, very strong team, and there is so little room for Reject to operate here that it will take a miracle for them to hold this thing down. They are going to attempt it though. Marvel on the move. Strange Portal coming in first. They are just going to go for a full wipe and close this thing out early.
You go for a cheeky portal play. flipping the map essentially, and Zero Tenacity have time to make this sort of play. They're gambling with house money. They know they don't have to cap the point in full. They just have to get 2/3 of the way, and that is child's play for a team this good. Reject, it's time to lock in. It's time to get angry. It's time to shut Zero Tenacity down. But as Zero Tenacity rain down onto the point, Xe has already taken down Piggy, and that is first blood bleeding that cannot be stemmed as Jerry finds 2, and this is all over but the crying. Zero Tenacity taking up the percentage bit by bit as one by one Reject fall, and they were gambling with house money. It's time for Zero Tenacity to cash out as millionaires and take their place atop the Asia Pacific region here, and Reject continue to slide down the pecking order.
Surprisingly so, too. And after that map 1 showing, too, on Burn into T'Challa, I am in shock here to see them fall yet again on a Symbiotic Surface, and Xe there picking up MVP on this map. Of course, picking up very quickly on the attack on that second map, closing things out. A very, very early day at the office here for Zero Tenacity, and they will finish the first week of preseason here undefeated as, man, gotta give them a ton of credit here, and I'm in shock. I really am. I don't know what to say about Reject, really, man. It's rough to watch for sure.
It's a little bit rough, and there is still time to turn their fortunes around, but I have a lot to say about Zero Tenacity because, like I said, I was really excited about this roster. I love this roster, and they are performing up to their potential. This, whether you like Reject's performance or not, was still a statement victory. This says we are the new kings in this region. If Reject falter, we will take their throne. We're the new kings, and if you're gonna come for the kings, you best come correct or don't come at all.
Yeah, and it just feels like they didn't show up here, which again, it just catches me so off guard because after watching Burn into T'Challa, I said, okay, great, we're locked in, we're here for the match, we're gonna get the 3 mapper, but Zero Tenacity just 1, 2, 3, and leave Reject staring up at the lights, dazed with no idea what just happened. So an incredible performance all weekend long for this Zero Tenacity squad. Of course, you know, like you said, I had a lot of high expectations for them as well. They definitely deliver on that, but Reject gonna have to be looking ahead at week 2 and thinking about what they can do differently here. Of course, I don't know that Symbiotic Surface is gonna be on the table for them going forward, but you know, again, it's not all bad for Reject here. They do have some bright spots. They put up a heck of a fight on that Burn into T'Challa map, so it's clear that they need some fine-tuning and some retooling to get back in the fight. But yeah, a very, very early lead here as Zero Tenacity and Pirates end up just being at the top of the leaderboard here at the end of the week.
I think for Reject, speaking of the leaderboards, you don't want to slide too far down. I don't think their playoff hopes are dashed. And again, it is still group stage and there is still playoffs, and the seeding might not be exactly what they wanted. There is some time to shore up some of these pain spots that we're identifying for this Reject squad, reclaim that glory that was once promised to them. But right now, Zero Tenacity are just bathing in that glory, practically drowning in it. They are standing so tall and looking so good, looking so dominant, and now we can look to the future and see we have an inevitable Zero Tenacity versus Pirates matchup somewhere in the not-so-distant future that I think is going to deliver on every promise, as those two are now both undefeated, both have not dropped the map in this group stage thus far, looking strong, looking clean, and looking to stake their claim as the one single undisputed #1 team in this region.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a couple of standouts. Triple AD has definitely made themselves a threat here. Right now, it seems to be somewhere between Pirates and Zero Tenacity, and yes, we will find out who stands above the other, and we'll find it out very early because that is the opening match of week 2. They will go head-to-head, so the question is, what do they do to prep for Pirates? Probably their toughest challenge yet on both sides of the board, really, for Pirates and for Z10. Gonna be an incredibly difficult match, but, you know, as we've seen here all through week 1, Zero Tenacity rise to the occasion in every sense, in every situation, and end up coming out on top. You know, definitely a little bit of faltering on Burn into T'Challa against Reject, but they come out the other end just fine, and they close out a very comfortable, breezy Symbiotic Surface. Completely out of the splash zone, by the way. No slime for them. I'm over here getting drenched in the park, and they're just, you know, cruising on through.
And despite a rough weekend for Reject overall, I do think there is one person, or one entity rather, that has suffered an even worse fate. And you want to know what that is, Diatonic? It's my Preds. My Preds! Myself and everybody in chat are Preds. They are completely boomed. They are in disarray. They're all over the place. There's some of them hanging off the ceiling fan. There's some stuck in the gutter. what even is this region at this point in time? The playing field is so even and so level, but at the same time so chaotic that anything can happen, and nobody could have predicted that this would happen.
No, definitely not. And, you know, again, like I said earlier, nice to see that the Asia region is falling in line with everybody else, because there have been so many surprises and so many upsets over this first couple of weeks of preseason competition across the board here in Ignite. But yes, definitely some big surprises here out of Asia tonight. I mean, from top to bottom, really, you know, only a couple matches went the way that I thought they were going to go, and I just kept getting proven wrong time and time again. So definitely kind of repicturing how we look at the Asia region and the teams in it. But I think, at least based on what I'm seeing, no shocker to see teams like Pirates and Zero Tenacity be at the top of the leaderboard. Again, Triple AD definitely seemed to be kind of the wild card, probably the third one in that mix, but, you know, very, very solid performances all week long from all those squads.
For the sake of my Preds, I'm banking it all. I gotta be batting 1,000 on OCE, because every other region, I've got some things I can be smug about. Like, I called Team Heretics over Na'Vi and EMEA. Everything below that, though, I don't want to talk about it. Like, that's all a complete mess, and I'm sure a lot of other people's Preds are probably feeling about the same. Americas, you know, we talk about how Cafe Rose and FlyQuest have just completely ruined everything for everybody, you know, by just being, like, unexpectedly insane at random points in time in that region. Like, what even can you say? And yeah, like you said, Asia is more than following suit. The team that we thought would be the undisputed S-tier team, Reject, is now nearing, if not already in, the danger zone of not making it to playoffs. I still have faith that they will make it, but now you have Pirates and Zero Tenacity, which we knew would be towards the top, but not at the top, but one of them will be at the top, and then what is even between that? Like, who even knows how things are going to shake out between here and there? Like, I'm curious, who did you have as your top three in order?
So my top three, I actually have Zero Tenacity at number 1, so thanks, guys.
Still possible.
Much appreciated.
That's better than I got.
possible.
I had Reject number 1, so you already might be better off than me.
I think I had Reject at number 1 until about 48 hours before Preds locked, and I said, you know, I want to get a little spicier with this, so I swapped those around. Z10 as number 1, Reject number 2, Pirates number 3. So my top 3, pretty close, I think, and Reject still has a chance to climb back up, but gonna be a tough mountain to climb.
I don't know if I don't know if Reject are gonna make it back to number 2, though, to be completely honest with you. Sure, maybe they could make top 3 if they really lock in right now, but I think 4th at this stage would be a good place for Reject if they can make it there. They're gonna have to be pretty much flawless from here on out. Very much so, unlike my Preds, about as flawed as can be. And yeah, it's just been a crazy weekend. By the way, we're stalling for time a little bit. We do have an interview. We don't want to send you off without hearing from one of the victors, one of the new kings, one of the folks from the hierarchy. One of the members of Zero Tenacity. We have got Bazer waiting in the green room, having a little bit of technical difficulties, ready to load in. But as soon as they are ready, we will have them here for you. Until then, you know, you get to have a little bit more of the CB and Diatonic podcast.
The Yapathon, if you will.
Yeah, the yappening part too. You know, we get a couple of those in there. Comes with the job.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was going to say about the Preds being so wild, you know, it definitely has kind of redefined how, at least for myself, I'm looking at the rest of the Ignite season. I mean, obviously it's preseason, a lot's going to change between now and stage 1, a lot's going to change between now and mid-season finals, but it definitely has taught myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people, that you can't just rely on the 2025 picture to look at what's going forward. You know, this is year 2 of Marvel Rivals Esports, and there's still a lot to be answered, a lot of fog of war over the entirety of the Ignite series. So, you know, a lot of questions still to be answered for these teams. A lot of things will change over time, but it definitely has made things very interesting here. Teams that I thought would be on top unquestionably are not so, and teams are coming out of left field to take big wins. So I love to see that. It definitely sets a really nice pace for what we're going to see throughout the rest of preseason. We still have a few weeks left for all regions to wrap up, and then onward into the rest of the year. I mean, it's going to be great stuff top to bottom.
But it is insane, though, that, like, even the top analytical minds in the game, like me or like you, I just put myself first, you know, of course. I am the top analytical mind. But even, like, everybody across the board was saying, you know, like, X team would be on top, or it'd be like, oh, it would be, you know, 100 Thieves, no question. It'd be Reject, no question. I was so bullish on Reject coming into this one, and it's not the case. And who knows where we go from here? Literally anything can happen. Sure, it is just the preseason, and there's still plenty of time to lock in and come correct for the actual season proper. Get yourself, you know, a little bit more momentum behind you. Get yourself a cleaner win-loss record. Find yourself potentially on stage at a LAN event, looking at that trophy, ready to hoist it with your teammates. But, you know, we're not there quite yet, and for a lot of the people that we thought, oh yeah, you're the one for sure, I think the only team that still looks like that undisputedly is Virtus.pro, which, you know, not a great outlook for everybody across the world who is like, we gotta be the ones to dethrone those guys. They're too high and mighty.
Yeah, that's kind of the quest going forward for a lot of the top teams from each region, is how do you handle some of the other top talent from other regions? And, you know, no doubt that teams are already looking ahead those few steps to see where they go next. But, you know, that's kind of the question coming out of the Pacific series for both Asia and Oceania, is what does the global picture look like when these teams go to LAN? How does Asia and Oceania stack up? You know, obviously the story of Chopper Mag from Grand Finals last year changes a lot of opinions about how Asia and Oceania compete on the global stage, but this is the time for the training arc to happen for these teams with these regional competitions to play off against each other, to find the best talent, to put together the best squads they can to move on to those globals. I mean, I know I'm thinking so many steps ahead here, but you know, that's where we're at. I mean, we're looking at, you know, already we're seeing these threads kind of starting to form of where these teams are going to head in the future. And you know, anything can change at any point in time, but you know, already I feel like there are a few names that are being whispered of like, okay, definitely these guys have a very good shot at LAN. What do they look like paired up against a Virtus.pro, a Liquid Citadel, a Swamp Gaming, a Gen G, a Reject, a Zero Tenacity? Those are kind of the questions we have to answer. But I believe we've got one other person on the line that's got some questions for us to answer. I believe we've got Baster from Zero Tenacity on the line here. My friend, congratulations on the big win. How are you guys feeling?
Thank you so much. We're feeling excited. This was probably one of our hardest matches in all the preseason, so to come out with a clean 2-0, giving us 6-0 is just feels amazing. The team's excited.
Was it one of your hardest matches? Because you didn't make it look hard. That looks pretty easy, especially on map number 2. Like, if that's your hardest, then, you know, I guess just give you the prize now. We can't actually do that, but, you know, if we could, I mean, if it's that easy, if it's gonna be that easy.
Right.
Well, you know, your matchup with Reject, I know definitely on paper one of the hardest looking matches. There is another challenger out there, though, and I'm curious to see what happens when you guys cross path. That is Pirates. How are you guys feeling about that matchup? Is there anything you're doing to prep ahead of time for that?
We haven't done much. We kind of have been taking it weekend to weekend, so we prepped for our 2 matches today. We'll be taking a look and practice for this next week. But yeah, I mean, that was a shocker to see the Rejects map look even easier for Pirates, so I mean, we have a lot of prep to do, and we'll be looking forward to getting ready for it.
I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup. I think that's going to be the new marquee matchup here for the region. I want to, you know, since that match was so easy, though, I want to ask you an easier question. You know, you mentioned in the last interview that we did with you that you're currently, you were boot camping with the rest of the team in Korea, and that it was your first time in Korea. How are you liking Korea? How's the food? What sorts of things are you getting up to in your spare time? Like, what's it been like?
It's awesome. It's a really beautiful country. I mean, there's parks everywhere. I take my time in nature, you know, do my daily practice, enjoy the beautiful scenery. The food here is incredible. I love it. I'm eating a little bit too much, but other than that, it's just been awesome, and my teammates have been more than helpful with showing me around and like showing me their culture. I think it's been really awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Love to hear that you guys are meshing well, and clearly it shows in the gameplay for sure. There's definitely a camaraderie there. I guess kind of my go-away question here is, you know, if you want to send a message to whether it's just the Asia region, all the Pacific series, to all of Ignite, what is something that Z10's got to say to the rest of the world here?
I mean, just try your best. That's all I can say.
Fair enough.
That might be the most PMA but also meanest thing I've ever heard. Just try your best. I love it. I love it. That's like it's like that's good. All right, well, you know, maybe not to the rest of the world, but you know, to maybe any of your friends, fans, or family members. If there's anything else you want to say, the floor is yours, my friends.
Thank you guys for supporting me, supporting us, and can't wait to show you guys what we have in store for next weekend. Thank you. Thank you, casters. Thank you.
Thank you so much.